Metroidvanias. One of my favorite game genres, along with rhythm games, roguelikes, FPS, and puzzle games. But Metroidvanias have a special place in my heart. Today, I want to talk about the best Metroidvania you've never heard of. Let's talk about Kirakiro. Before I begin, I'd like to clarify that Chiaroscuro is not finished. There are currently 2 completed chapters, with many more to come. With that out of the way, let's dive in. Chiaroscuro is a 2D adventure platformer with Metroidvania elements. Explore a world that has fallen into darkness and discover the lights to illuminate your forgotten past. Already an appealing story, and I haven't even booted up the damn game yet. So, let's play. Right off the bat, let me just say something. The game design choice to make the weapon a thorn when the protagonist/character that we play as is named Rose, that's just genius. Absolute cinema. So then the game actually starts, and we wander around an abandoned mine for like 5 seconds before entering the lush courtyard, where we wander around. Quite riveting, really. Jokes aside, once we walk around enough, you'll find a house with a guy named Stretcher who doesn't know where his dog is. Don't worry, sir, I'll find your dog at all costs. Oh, look, there it is. So once we go find Dover, the man's dog, we get interrupted by a crow dude being the main character of his own anime. Then he says, "Nah, man, I'm out," and just dips. Okay, sure. Then we walk 5 more feet to obtain Dover, and we go back to Stretcher. Returning Dover gives us the Strange Fragment, which serves as this game's equivalent of Dash. Once you have Dash, wander around some more. Navigating through a new area, we are able to find the Crow Dude again. He asks why we have been following him. "Brother, I haven't been following you, you just teleported here!" And then we fight him. Overall, once you learn the basic PvP mechanics, this guy is an absolute pushover. Just punch him a shit ton, wait for him to dash at you or something, and beat him up again. Oh, look, he died. Oh, never mind, he's alive still. Anyways, it appears the doctor wants to research the light that's just sitting there. Then we get dragged into it like we're Chell from Portal 2, opening the portal to the moon. Then we walk around in some sort of dream sequence, and eventually find somebody who seems to know us. And we know them too. Kind of. Because of our memories getting cooked and shit, we don't really know who this person is. They seem like a mentor of sorts, and they definitely seem like a warrior. Once we watch this heartwarming cutscene of Rose and this other person, we gain a new ability, the Lumen Slash. This ability is actually fucking overpowered, especially in bosses, since it stuns the enemies, and also does more than base thorn damage. So it's really just, you can kind of just hit the boss, Lumen Slash, hit the boss, Lumen Slash, and boss can't attack you really. So that's pretty funny. Anyway, now that we have this, we can go back to Duskhaven, the main village of the game, and talk to the doctor again. And that's the end of chapter 1. On to chapter 2, we immediately fall down a pit and get a bench. Funny Hollow Knight reference. Walking further left, we find a tree with a home carved inside it. Inside is some archer guy. He basically says that bows are no longer the meta, but he thinks bows are cool, so he gives us a bow. And now we have a bow. Hype. This new bow is very useful in fights, and it also helps Rose open new secret areas that have some helpful items such as heals or damage buffs. Then if we wander around a little more, Rose can encounter a blue moth dude? Kinda reminds me of someone. I don't really know what they are, but I'll beat the shit out of them regardless. After we take care of that guy, we can go find Bramble, an NPC in the game, and we'll receive the Spirit Core. This core can break the blue walls that block the way, like how Lumen Slash can destroy the white vine walls. Now that we have that, we can wander around some more until we find a new boss. He's literally right next to the other one. This boss is named the Pumpkin Prince. This boss is a bit more challenging, as it has more variety in its attacks. From a red spike launch to summoning pumpkins from the ceiling, it has more action than any of the other bosses in the game. Luckily, I can just cheese it with Lumen Slash. Defeating this boss grants Rose the Ruby Core, which can break the red pumpkin walls. These walls lead to some new secrets, such as a new area. But before we go there, we get another cutscene. This cutscene shows a new character, who we haven't seen before, teleport in front of the light that we are trying to obtain, before the vision fades out. Then we go right and down and left and down, and we get into the same room that we just saw in the vision. But there's one key difference. The light's gone. Someone already took it. That guy that we saw took the light. The mysterious character has already taken the light and fled. We are unsure what to do about this, so we head out the right side exit of the room. Navigating around a bit more, you can find an area known as the Lost Mines. This area is pretty open, but it has a few things of interest. The main attraction in this area is a boss, who looks kind of like the Dune Sandworm. I can see the family relation. This fight is more of a test of the player's platforming skills and ability to navigate a harsh environment with something constantly following it. This boss was decently hard to beat for me, purely because I was trying to play aggressive against it. You really should be playing defense, while hitting it when you can, but for the most part you should just be dodging it. Then after like 15 attempts, you finally beat the boss. From here, you go back to Duskhaven and talk to Doc yet again. In his house. Again. Doing this completes Chapter 2. But if we go back to the Lost Mines and go here, and talk to the guy that's here... Hey, why'd you bump into me? What the fuck? It starts a game of hide and seek. Then, if you go to this spot, kind of by this lake, you can find him hiding there. Dude, that's a shit hiding spot. From there, he gives you an early new core called the Static Core. And that's all the demo content we have access to for now. Already a really interesting game with some good lore to theorize about, as well as the game being a very speedrunnable game, at least for me. But before we get into theorizing about the lore, I want to talk about Chapter 3. Thanks to the kindness of BlackberryKin, the game's developer, I was able to get beta testing early access to Chapter 3, which I also played on stream, along with the other chapters. This chapter adds a new area, a new core, a new boss, and a lot of new lore to the game, including a plot twist. But before we continue, I'd like to clarify that Chapter 3 of Chiaroscuro is not yet open to the public. We'll be discussing everything that's available to find in the beta, so spoiler warnings ahead. With that out of the way, let's continue. Starting with a new area called the Arctic Cliffs, it feels similar to Mount Fae in Hollow Knight Silksong, an icy, cold mountain that Rose is meant to climb. But before you get to the base of the mountain, you can navigate through a water maze of sorts. This maze of water-breathing conservation leads to a new core, called the Aqua Core, which lets you breathe underwater, and it also adds a new attack replacing the Lumen Slash. Then we can go back to the base of the mountain. Once you parkour far enough up the mountain, an icy boulder comes loose from above and falls on top of you. Luckily, Doc teleports to you and pushes you out of the way so as to avoid your death or injury. Unfortunately, in the efforts to save you from danger, he dooms himself to injury, being crushed by the literal falling boulder. Once the boulder is not on him anymore, cause I guess it broke, I guess he does have his own anime. To assist him, we carry him further up the mountain, and Rose finds a spot to give Doc the vital medical attention he needs. Once we drop him off, we save and do a little more platforming. Navigating towards the top of the mountain leads us to the new boss/character, Bandit. Bandit harnesses static electricity, similar to the static core that we obtained in late Chapter 2, and attacks you with multiple attacks, such as the lightning bolts, a cloud of electricity, and a teleportation dash. If he hits Rose with a static attack, she becomes stunned for a few seconds. This is why it is especially important not to get hit during this fight. Completing this fight leads to a cutscene where Bandit cries out that the light is his, followed by Bandit dashing across to the right side of our screen. Walking a little bit forward, the dock also flies that way. Walking in the direction they both went shows a new light. But this light has already been absorbed. By who, we don't know. Going to the spot where the light was absorbed and walking back towards the boss arena again starts a cutscene. Here, Doc uses a spell of sorts to sedate Rose into a deep sleep. Then we wake up, tied up next to Bandit, hanging from the ceiling over a pit, with Doc standing next to us. I honestly had no idea this plot twist was coming up, and it's honestly a really, really interesting choice. Like, he saved us from dying multiple times, only to capture and betray us once we got to the top of the mountain. Apparently, Doc was just using us to study the light and trying to manipulate us into helping him. And it worked. The doctor never wanted to help us get our memories back. After all, he's likely the one who brainwashed everybody. Then he breaks the rope, holding Rose and Bandit from falling down into a pit, which enters into some red cave area reminiscent of the Crystal Peaks from Hollow Knight, except red. And unfortunately, because we abide by the laws of gravity, we fall down. And that's the end of Chapter 3, at least as far as we have it. Chapter 3 added a really interesting plot twist, a new area, a really fun yet difficult boss, and a new core. I cannot wait to see what BlackberryKin can cook up for Chapter 4 and onward. Thank you again, BlackberryKin, for letting me playtest Chapter 3 early. Now, let's talk about the lore and my theories about the future of this game. I had previously theorized about a reality element that Doc would use to create his fantastical illusions, but it turns out he's just really good at using Lumen, and I'm fucking stupid. Before I start theorizing, let's cover some of the basics. There are 11 elements that we know of, with a 12th element that was scrapped. We have Lumen, Spirit, Ruby, Dream, Plasma, Static, Gamma, Aqua, and Gale. That was only 9 out of the 11 that I mentioned. My lawyer has advised me not to say anything funny regarding this number. The other 2 elements were more difficult for me to find. One of them is so painfully obvious that I can't believe it took me this long to notice it, and one element literally appears in one goddamn frame. Better animation than One Punch Man Season 3. The other 2 elements I neglected to mention are light. You know, one of the main plot points of the game in the story, and one of the most important elements in the entire game! Yeah, that light. And what I like to call darkness. It's not confirmed what the actual name is, but it's likely something along those lines. If you were wondering which frame it is, it's this one. Right here. In one singular frame at the end of the Chapter 3 beta. Yippee! I also mentioned a scrapped element, which you have already seen earlier in this video. The hacker element is what Bumpy uses to teleport himself throughout the map. And we even see roughly how it works in the cutscene you can get after Chapter 2 to receive the early static core. This element, as far as I know, is not canon, but it's still kinda cool to think about, since Lumen is the only element without a counter, and 12 elements instead of 11 would make every element have a counter. Highly doubt this is canon though, since I'm pretty sure the hacker element was an early version of the static element. Now that we've covered all that, let's theorize. First off, in the ending cutscene for Chapter 3, where that one stupid-ass frame is, we see that Doc is somehow being controlled by the darkness element. Or at least it's bonded with him in some way. My main theory for this video is that Doc isn't a bad guy. He's just being controlled by the darkness. Obviously someone being controlled by darkness would want to research its counter element, right? So it can learn how to defend against it or something. We can't really know for sure yet, so this goes on the theory board. I don't know how he ended up being controlled by it, but hopefully we can learn more about that in future chapters. And that's all I have for today. Not too much, but I wanted this video to release in the next 80 years. Thank you so much for watching, thank you to BlackberryKin for making this sick as hell video game, and I hope you all have a great day.